Okay, let's get started here. I'm going to show you how to create a simple two-column fixed structure. And it's not as difficult as you think it might be. This is an example right here of what I have, the completed project. And as you can see, it just very simply has the header, the navigational bar, a left column, a right column, and a footer. So this is what is called a fixed structure. So what makes this a fixed structure is the fact that I put in the size that I want for my file. That's very easy to do. Let's just get started here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new file. File, new. And if you go right, it should open up right to this document. You're going to make this an HTML file. You're going to select none because you're going to make your own CSS file. You're not going to use any of these preset files. And you want to make sure that it is set to HTML5. If you went through and you listened to my lectures, you will know the reason why you want it to be HTML5 is so that you can put all those great videos in and all those great flash files in the last couple of weeks of your class. So then once you're done, all you have to do is just hit create. Alright, so you see there's nothing here. So I have this set so that I can see my HTML up on the top here, and down at the bottom I can see what I am doing for my project. So the very first thing, I'm not going to even open up the file over here, the insert file, and put it in this way. Some of you may still be using Cloud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top, and go up to the top. It says insert, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says layout object, and I'm going to include a div tag. So it's just very simple. Insert layout object div tag, and I'm going to select that. And it's going to say at the insertion point because that's where I want it to go, right at the beginning. You can see right here at the beginning. And I'm just going to keep this as a class for this project. And if you remember what I did in my lectures, if you don't, just go back and review. So I am going to call this container, because this is where everything's going to be inside is my container. And I'm going to select new CSS rule before I go out of here so that I can apply some CSS rules. It just saves me a lot of headaches if I do that right now. And I'm going to put this style right inside my file. And I'm going to hit new CSS rule. And you see that it's going to open up to class right up here. Class rule right here. And in the class rule, if you remember, the class rule has the dot in front of it, container. I'm going to hit OK. But I'm not going to do anything just yet. I'm just going to hit OK. We're going to go back and do that later. And then I'm going to hit OK here. And you will see that Dreamweaver has placed in some text here. That's because if there's no text here, then you will not see what you're doing. So right now I'm just going to leave it just the way it is. So now I want to create a, I have my very first, you can see right up here, okay? Now see right here, this is the beginning of the tag right here. It comes right after the body tag. And you need to know your HTML. So it comes after the body tag and it says div class equals container, and then Dreamweaver has just put this text in for you, and then this is the end of the div. Now I want to place everything inside of this. You can either select here or you can select here. Let's not get rid of this text just yet. But at the end, we're going to get rid of this text. So you can either select it in the HTML file up here, or you can select it right onto the design area right here. Okay, and you can see it. Whichever way you do it, it doesn't make a difference. So now I'm going to insert the header. Obviously, the header is going to be up at the top because that's what I want. So, you know, I want my header to be at the top, the navigation to come after that, and then my body, you know, your content, all your content, and then your footer at the bottom. So you have to make sure everything falls in place. Let's just select this, and I'm going to insert another div tag. So I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to insert, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to insert a layout object div tag. And it says at insertion point because that's where I have selected, and I'm going to call this one header. I'm going to leave these as a class, And then where it says new CSS rule, I'm going to select this because I want to have some rules in my file. If I don't do this now, it's going to be a little harder to go back and do this later. It's just so much easier to do it while I'm working on my file. And you'll notice again it says dot header, and it's going to say class right up here. I'm going to hit OK, but I'm not going to put anything in yet, and I'm going to hit OK. And then again, I'm going to select OK. So now you'll notice that if you look up here in your HTML, you will see that it says the first one is your container, and you're going to notice that your header now is inside your container. It doesn't look like it on the file. You know, it's kind of confusing when you're working with CSS, but it will show you in your HTML up here. Okay? Now if you go over to your class styles and you just open it up, you're going to see now you have container in there and header in there. We can go back and select these by double clicking them, and then it'll open up to the dialog box and we can put in the information that we want. So we will do that later. I just want to get this laid out first. You can go to so many different tutorials and they're going to show you so many different ways to do this. But I really want you guys to just concentrate on learning how to do cascading style sheets. I know there's all different kinds of grids out there, but if you are new at designing in Dreamweaver and new at designing cascading style sheets, just simply make your file a 2 or 3 column grid. If you feel more comfortable in doing more, then go ahead. It's totally up to you. So now I want to create another div tag, and this one is going to be my navigation tag. So again, I have to select inside my container. Okay, but you could also select right here. If I select after the header tag, then I'm going to make sure that this tag is going to fall into my file the way I want it to fall. Okay, so that's kind of important. So I think I'm just going to try it up here and see what happens. You don't want it to fall out. You want it to be underneath the header. Okay, so this one is going to be our navigation. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to insert a layout object, div tag, and I'm going to call this one navigation. Again, I'm going to make sure I select the new CSS rule, and I'm just going to hit OK. I'm not going to do anything yet. I'm going to hit OK, and then I'm going to hit OK again. And you will see that if you did this right, that it's going to go right underneath your header. So you have the header first and then the navigation, and everything is inside the container. If I select out here on my file, right at the corner here, and you will notice that I select the container and everything is inside the container. You have to have a container. If you don't have a container, your file is going to fall all over everywhere. You can call it whatever you want. Some call it outer wrapper, some call it container. You know, I will show you in the next tutorial how to create it in a different way. You know, it's just so many different ways you can do this. There really is no right or wrong. It's really basically what you feel comfortable doing. So now our code is going to look like this. Nothing too fancy just yet. We're going to start putting some content in a minute. Okay, so now the next one is going to be content. That's where you're going to put your columns. So now we have to go ahead and do the same thing. We want to make sure that it falls after the navigation, because you're going to have the header first, your navigation next, and then your content. So I'm going to select up here in my code because I just want to make sure that it does go where it's supposed to go. And I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to insert a layout object, and I'm going to insert a div again. Again, this is going to go at the insertion point because that's where I want it to go. And this one I'm going to call content. And make sure you do the new CSS rule. You don't want to forget that. And it's going to go up dot content. You're just going to hit OK. We're not going to put anything in it yet. I'm just going to hit OK. So now everything is falling the way I want it. If you notice up in your styles over here, you can see in your CSS styles, you can see everything that you've done so far is over here in your styles, and it's looking the way it should. The content fell below the the navigational bar in the header, and that's where you want it to be. So we're moving right along here. We're getting this pretty much all set up. So now I'm going to just put in the footer, and then I'm going to go back and put in the columns. So I'm just going to select right here again because I want it to go right after the content tag that I want to place in my footer. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Again, you can select in your code, your HTML code, and just go up to the top. You're going to insert a layout object again and a div tag. It doesn't matter what program you use. If you use Dreamweaver CS5, CS 5.5, CS6, or the new cloud version, you still can put your divs in the same way. The biggest issue when you're using the cloud version is how to set the CSS styles up. It's a little bit confusing. That's why I've been insistent with your school to give you CS6 and not cloud. So let's just do this again. Alright, so it's going to go at the insertion point because where I want it, and I'm going to call this footer. Okay, and then I'm going to hit new CSS rule. I don't want to forget that. And again, it's going to come up footer. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK again, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so far we have this pretty much laid out, and it's pretty much following where I want it. And again, if I select my my whole div here, you see it has the opening tag right up here for the container, and there's the closing tag for the container, and everything else that's inside is inside the container. You have to understand that the text, the filler text, is just kind of pushing things out, so it may not look exactly the way you think it should look. But everything, if it's set up correctly, everything right now is set up inside this div. If I highlight this whole thing, you will notice that the whole thing will highlight out here. So I have done this correctly so far. So right now, before I start doing anything else, I'm just going to save my file. I'm going to go File, Save As. Now, if this was the very first page in your site, you do not call it home page, my site, your name, anything. Your very first page has to be called index. Okay, since I already have an index page in here, I'm not going to call this index. I'm going to call this practice 2. Okay, and then I'm going to hit save. If this is your first page in your site, you can create a practice page if you want. That's totally up to you. No spaces in HTML. Please remember that. If you ever want to put your sites up online, the browser, the only thing the browsers will read is index as your first page of the site. Your site will not function correctly if you do not set it up correctly. That's very, very important. You have to set your files up correctly. I showed you how to do that last week, and you need to do this the correct way. So I'm going to hit save. So you're not going to see anything if you're previewed because I haven't put anything inside of it yet. So let's just go on. We put in our container tag. Okay. So now I'm going to go back, and I am going to set my container tag. I'm going to set up my CSS rules here. That's going to go back up here to container. I'm going to double click that. Now I have a Mac. I think might be a little bit different for you. I'm not going to put type in because, what happens if you put type in, it's going to really confuse your file. You want to set up your own styles for your typography separate from this, okay? So I'm just going to go to background. I'm just going to set my background to white, just so that it has a nice white color in it. I'm not going to do anything for block. I'm going to go to box, okay? So this is the very first thing that I'm going to do. Is I'm going to set my my container to 900, okay, because that's the size of my file. So I'm going to set the width to 900 pixels, and then at the same time I'm going to set my margin. I'm going to uncheck this. Now, very important, if you want this to go into the center, you have to actually select right auto and left auto. Okay, so now I have my width. That's the size of my file. That's how big I want it to be. Okay, and I have my my right and my left. So let's just see what this looks like. It's kind of important not to forget this stuff if you're going to do a fixed file. And it really depends. I find that with new designers, sometimes it's easier to work with a fixed file. It's really totally up to you. Let's just take a look and see how this looks. So I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so now you'll notice that my file has adjusted itself. And you see it has these little paddings on it because I have set this to be centered, because I want my file to fall into the center. So if I've done my first set of styles, if I click container, I can double click this and go back and do anything I want to, any time that I want to while I'm working on my file. That's what's really nice about creating a CSS style. You can pretty much do anything you want for your file. It's totally up to you. And you can go back anytime and work on it. So the next one I'm going to do is going to be my header. So I'm going to double click that. And I'm going to do the same thing, okay? I'm going to set my header at, and go to box. I'm going to set this at 900. I want my header also to stay where it's supposed to stay. So I'm going to select auto again for right and auto again for left. So I want it to be in the center, okay? I'm going to put a little background color in just so that you can see this as we're working on the file. And I'm just going to select that. And for type, I'm just going to, actually I'm not going to do anything. Okay, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So let's just see what we have so far. I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so now you'll notice the content is up here. Don't worry about that. That's only because you have text in there. That's all. So don't even worry about that. When I take the text out, you're not going to actually really see the container. So I'm just going to just bring this down just a hair. Actually, what I'm thinking of doing, maybe I should put not only for for the box, I might put a height in here just so you can see it. So I'm going to put 150. Okay, you might want to put a height in. It depends on what kind of image you want to put in. Remember, you're going to have to put a navigational bar in. So you might want to think about this as you're working on your file. You might want to make your, your header maybe half the size of this width, so that you can use the other half of it to put in your search bar and your, so your social links. So these are just things to think about. You can just, and Dreamweaver is a real user-friendly program. You can just select the color that's in your header, and you can fill your whole div with that same color. It's just a very easy program to use. So I'm just going to hit OK. Okay, so now you see the header has expanded so that you can see it a little clearer. And I'm just going to go back with this text, and I'm just going to write header. And I may just select this text. Okay, let's put maybe a little white color, just so you can see it. Okay, and now I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to keep saving what I'm doing because I don't want to lose the work that I've done. So the next tag is going to be my navigation. So I just have to go over here where it says navigation, double click that. And again, in the CSS rules, it opens up to the CSS rule box for navigation. So I want to kind of think about my navigation. It depends upon what you're planning on doing for your navigation. You can set this up, but remember, with CSS rules, you can go back and change anything, which is really nice about CSS rules. I'm going to put a color in again, just so you can see it. I'm just going to give it a red color. You can also put images in and stuff like that, but you don't want to do that for your navigation. So go to block, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to put in my size, height. I'm going to put 40 in because I think I might want to put in a sprawl bar. I'm not really sure. I can go back and change that. That's what's really great about this program. I want this to set in the center too, so I'm going to put auto again. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I just don't want to take any chances. I want to make sure that everything falls into the center. Okay, then you can go back and change your color, do whatever you want to with this. It's just really totally up to you. I'm not going to assign any text or anything. I'm going to, because I want to create a style for my text, for my navigational text. So it just depends on what you want to use. If you're going to do your navigation as a link, as a list, or if you're going to do it with a spray bar, you can come back and change this later. So I'm going to hit OK. So now you see that I have my navigation. I'm just going to write the word navigation here. Okay, and I'm just going to simply select the color white down here. If I select the text and just go down here and select white. Oops. Gotta be careful. It's grabbing my it was grabbing my CSS style. Okay, just so you can see it. So now I'm going to hit File and Save. Okay, so far so good. Alright, so let's just continue on here. We got to do the content tag now. Alright, so that's really important to sometimes items will fall out of your container if you do not select and position your tag correctly. So I'm going to place in a background color for my content. I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to simply give my background color a white color, just to separate it from the outside. I may want to put a color on the outside of my file. So I'm going to select my my tag to inherent. So I'm going to go down to positioning. Okay, and right up at the top here, I'm going to write inherent. Okay, and I'm going to give the width 900. Obviously, I want everything to stay the same. And I'm going to select my positioning. I'm going to select this at auto. And I'm just going to select, I'm going to put a number in here for positioning. Because I don't want this file to go too far over to the left. I want it to kind of stay in the center as much as possible. When somebody is going through my file, and opening up in their site, I don't want it to go too far over to the left. I want it to kind of stay into the center. So let's just hit OK. You're not going to see anything. I'm just going to File and Save. Okay? That's just kind of helps set my content in my file. That's all. So next we're going to go through and I'm going to put in my columns. I'm going to put in my left column and I'm going to put in my right column. Now my columns are going to go into the content tag. Okay? So let's just make sure that we are in the content. So let's just go right here. Okay? So you're going to have to select into the content. You can select right here, or you can select up here. You want it to make sure that it falls into the content, okay? You don't want it to fall down below the footer. It's very important to make sure that you have everything selected correctly. When you do this very first phase, it just makes your whole life a lot easier. So I'm just going to select here, okay? And I can get rid of the text if I want, if you want to. But I'm going to wait on that because I like it as a guideline. I don't want to lose what I'm doing. It gets kind of confusing if you start to lose what you are working on. So you might want to just keep this text in until you get this all set up. So now I'm going to insert another div. I'm going to insert this as a left column. So I'm going to go up to the top again, and I'm going to insert a layout object, div tag, and I'm going to call this left column. Remember, no spaces. And before I go out, I'm going to set a new CSS rule. And this one, I'm going to actually put the rules in. So I'm going to hit OK, because I've got everything else all laid out in my file. So I'm going to select box, and I'm going to actually set a width. You can do pretty much what you want to. For this file, I decided I'm going to put this at 425 for my pixels, and I'm going to place a little margin on it. The reason why I'm going to put a little margin on it to the right is because I want this to, have some space in between, my columns. I don't want my columns on top of each other. It won't look good. So I'm going to put in, for the margin, I'm going to go down margin. I'm going to uncheck this. And where it says margin on the right, I'm going to put in 25 pixels. Now I'm going to make sure up on top, this is very important, that I float this to the left. This is my left column, so I'm going to float this to the left. So it's not really too much in here, but I'm going to also go back and put a color so that I can see what I'm doing. Let's just stick this ugly green in here and hit OK. And then OK again. So far, so good. All right. So I'm just going to call this left column. So that you can see it. I'm going to leave this one black. Okay, so now we have our left column in. Put the right column in. We have to make sure that it is right after the left column. So you're going to go back into your code, and where it says div class left column up on the top here, select right afterwards, okay? It's still inside the content. You can see this. You have the opening tag and the closing div tag right up here. We have the first left column that's inside your content, and then the next one we're going to put it right next to it, and we're going to put another div in, and we're going to call this one right column. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to insert a layout object, div tag, and at insertion point, because that's where we want it, okay? And we're going to call this one right column. No spaces. New rule. Don't forget the rule. If you forget this, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, and then hit it. You see again, it's a class and right column. You have to check everything you have here. Hit OK. Okay, so now this is a right column. So let's just do the same thing again. Let's just go. I'm going to put a background color. Let me do that first. Let's give it a whole totally different background color. Let's make it orange. Okay. Then we're going to go to positioning again. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It's going to go to box. We're going to float this to the right. Okay. And let's put the within, you have to decide. You have to do a little math to figure out the size of your boxes and the size of your columns. You may change this around a little bit. This one I'm going to put 440. And then I'm going to put the margin in again. I'm going to uncheck this. And then I'm going to put margin to the left because this is my right column. I'm just going to put 10 in. Okay? So you want to make sure that you put this in right. So you just go down to the left. It's going to be on the left side. You have to add all this up to make sure that it comes out correctly. So very simple. And hit OK. So I have done this correctly because now I can see my left column and my right column. So I'm going to write in right column. Okay, so far so good. So now I can go back and just take this text out here for that content. All right. I'm just going to just kind of go right here and take this out. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to wait until I do the footer. We have to be really, really careful. We can go back and take all this excess text out. But let's just do the footer, okay? So now I'm going to go and do my very last rule here. We have our right column, our left column. Remember, you can go back and change anything. You notice how you have a nice little space in between your columns. Okay, so then let's do our very last style, which is going to be our footer. So I'm going to double click that and open this up. Okay, now for the footer, it has a little different conditions. I'm going to select box, and over here I'm going to select clear, and I'm going to select both. Okay, and then I'd like to just put a little border on it just so that you can see. I'm going to uncheck style. I'm going to select for the top. I'm going to put double. You can do whatever you want just so that you can see it, and I'm going to hit double again. I'm going to also unselect width. I'm going to put a little width. I'm going to put this medium. And I think the color I'm just going to grab will be black. Okay, then I'm going to give it a little background color. Let's just do a little light blue, just so you can see. Now you can also select your type. You can put, and you might want to, as far as the box go, you might want to put some padding, a margin in. Whatever you want to do, it's totally up to you. And I'm going to hit apply. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. So now I like what I have so far. I'm going to get rid of this text up on here. I don't need this anymore. So you want to get rid of that. You want to tighten up your file. I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need this anymore. Okay. Oops. Gotta be careful. I accidentally deleted my other stuff too. So you want to be very careful. You know, I accidentally deleted my left and right column. So I just want to get rid of the text. Oops. Very careful when you're working with this program. Sometimes it's easier just to go up into the code and do it and get rid of the text for this. Let's just get rid of this text. Very case sensitive. Okay, so let's see what we have so far. I'm going to file and save this. You know, it's very important to, as you're working with these files too, I tell my students, make sure that you create duplicate copies. If you make any kind of errors or anything, you know, you want to make duplicate copies of your files. Save them someplace else. If you make an error, you can always go back to score one. So it's real important. You can also make sure that you have your history palette open up. You know, this is new in Dreamweaver, the history palette. You can go through your history palette and try to figure out where you messed up. And that's a lot easier than going through, you know, hundreds of histories. So let's just see how this looks. So let's just go up to the top where it says File, Preview. You can select the browser. Okay, very simple. Nothing too complex. But you can see everything that I've done so far. You see the white color because I put the white color in the background. My header, my navigation, my left column, my right column, and my footer. And that's simply it. Okay, it's not too difficult. And this will just get you started. If I select where it says left column, I can actually bring this file down. You know, you can work on this, pretend that you're putting in content or whatever. So this is the end of this tutorial. This will just be a simple fixed 2-column grid.